Right, it's a new year for you. Happy, enjoy. Good job. You made it. 10 out of 10. We'll do again. It's still December for me. Hi. It's the 10th of December. So let's look at the. Fuck, have I watched that many films already? Let's look at this. Films I've seen so far. Oh my god. We started December off with Frivolous Lola. Oh my god, did I just talk about that in the video? I think I did, talking about the erotic cinema of Tinto Brass. Nevertheless, I gave it 3.5 stars. Pretty fun. Sexual, for an obvious nature. Really nice 4K release from Cult Epics. Definitely a good gateway drug into his cinema if you are interested. I double featured that for some reason with West Side Story. I double featured it because no one was home. I'm like, good, I can just watch this movie without anyone walking in and seeing basically people having sex on the screen and being like, that looks a little too explicit, Julian. What the hell are you watching? So anyway, I watched West Side Story because I've been listening to the soundtrack all day. The original, the 61 version. Love it. 10 out of 10. 5 stars. Just amazing. I want to do a lot more musicals this month. I don't know why, I just felt like it, but I started with this one. Good film. I mean, I've seen it before. It's just gorgeous. It is so gorgeous. The whole sequence where Maria starts spinning and then there's all these Technicolor bliss comes out and then bam, they're suddenly in the gymnasium doing the dance sequence. Cinema, baby. Anyway, on the second, I followed that up with West Side Story. What the fuck did I just do? Oh no, it's the 2021 version of The Doy. 4.5 stars. Still amazing. Just hate that Ansel Elgort is in the film. Not just because he's a fucking weirdo, but also the fact that he looks like a weirdo. But also the fact that I don't buy him as a guy who could kill someone. It just doesn't seem him. I like the expansions in the narrative. I like the set design. I like the costuming, the color, even though it again is not the Technicolor bliss of the 50s version, 60s version. But like the fact that it's got this kind of more hard-boiled nature to it, but also it's still just so snappy and so beautiful and so well choreographed. And I'm seeing all these actors I'm starting to notice more often now, like Mike Feist, I think it is, who's in Challenges. I'm like, oh my god. Who else was it that I loved? Rachel Zegler is fantastic in it. Still yet to see her in a good film outside of this, which was crazy. Ariana DeBose, phenomenal. So fucking good in this movie. It's great. It's still great. Again, outside of Ansel being in the film, to be fair, I think this is the one film where I'm like, I don't buy the romance. I think he's a creep. I feel like that's kind of the verge you're meant to get from it, whereas in the original, it's got this fairy tale nature. This was the first time I watched the 60s one and actually bought the romance because I'm like, I like this fairy tale thing. I dig it. I'm into it right now. I can believe it even if it's the least believable factor next to white people in blackface. Imperfections, it's history, that's how it goes. I'm not going to discredit the film for literally doing that. It's just what they did. It's you get used to it. But at least this one rectifies that. Look at that. A Puerto Rican cast. Look at that. They speak in Spanish. There's no subtitles, which again was Spielberg's way of being like, oh, because we're all on equal planes. Like, if it's the same level as like of acceptance as English, like they're not subtitling the English stuff for the Puerto Rican people, so they're not going to subtitle the Puerto Rican stuff for the English people, I get it. I'm annoyed by it, but I get it. Still, that's cinema, baby. But again, 4.5 stars. Really good. Really good. But the Officer Kripke sequence, like, I like how they've variated the sequences. It's not just, you're on a rooftop, you're on a street. That's it. That's all the settings we've got. What's that? 50 years later, we've got a studio, and it looks fucking amazing. And by the way, you're on a street, but it's gargantuan, and it moves from like all these apartment buildings and inside, like the America song, so fucking captivating. The Officer Kripke one, the design for just the whole entire set piece and how they utilize it. The fact that it's just these guys in a prison and like in a not a prison, but like a police station, and all the police state people have to leave and whatever. And the one woman who's in there is like, I'm not sticking around these guys. I'm locking myself in a cage. And I was just like immediately realized what she's doing. Like, oh, I get you. Go for it. Wonderful sequence. I love that whole Officer Kripke thing. It's one of those things where I still have preferences in this version over the original, but this one still has that ugly guy on the front cover. Anyway. Shumino chose a poster that emphasizes his face, but I kind of get it. Kind of have to, maybe, potentially. Anyway, on the same day, I watched Cheeky, which I gave 2.5 stars. I thought it was okay. Again, Tinto Brass. erotic, 4K, it's mostly porn. It's fine, it's just not that captivating. On the 3rd, I watched The Cook, The Thief, His Wife, and Her Lover? What? Never heard of this one before. Actually, I hadn't, and I got the Blu-ray recently, and 5 stars. Just amazing. Holy shit of a picture. Just so beautiful. Needs a 4K restoration big time, because that's just the coloring and the set design and the costuming. It's so many wide shots that a 4K could really emphasize the detail of all of it, and I would love that so much. On the 4th, I double featured The Deadly Dream and Baffled. And then on the 5th, I also watched Scream Pretty Peggy, which I gave 3 stars for Deadly Dream, 2 stars for Baffled, and 3 stars for Scream Pretty Peggy, all of which are in my review for the Imprint TV movie of the week set. So I've already talked about those interesting films. Go check out that video. Also on the 5th, I watched, drum roll please, my 500th movie of the fucking year. The last time I got the 500 movies in 1 year was 2019, and I was actively pursuing that. I spent the whole entire year outside of doing uni and a whole bunch of other shit. Uni, work, socializing, went to Japan, the whole kit and caboodle. And I got to 500 and I think maybe 9 or 10 by the last day of December. I think I hit 500 in the last week of December that year, which was really, really tough. And I watched the John Dillman film, the one that apparently was rated like #1 on some film list like a year or two ago, and everyone went crazy about it. I'm like, it's a good film. I don't know why it's the top of this list, but it's a good film. I watched it prior to that stuff because I'm a normal person, and I already had the Criterion, and I was ready and waiting, had a day to just watch a 3-hour film with no interruptions, and it was wonderful. But this time, I was going to actually watch the same film again. I thought that would have been really funny. But I decided, you know what? I'm going to be creative here. Let's watch Pink Flamingos. I've never seen it before, and it's the second John Waters film I'll be watching, because the first one I watched was Crybaby, which was really interesting. And this is the second one of his I've watched, and I'm like, oh shit. Beautiful 4K restoration from Criterion. Wonderful set in general. Definitely worth getting. Holy shit. Yeah, to be fair, I could have watched Multiple Maniacs, which is also on the Criterion channel. Ironically, Pink Flamingos isn't. What are the odds? But because I had this on Blu-ray, I'm like, I'm doing this. This will be really interesting. And it was really fun. I gave it 4.5 stars. Oh, that means it must be really good. Worth watching. Wholeheartedly. Really fun time. Not always a fun time. Woof. On the 6th, I watched The Return of the Vampire, because I was wanting to watch a really short film, and it was 70 minutes, and I loved it. I gave it 4.5 stars. This is one that Lee had done a commentary on, and it was like Bela Lugosi's return. I'm like, wow, this is going to be great, and it was. It was like 70 minutes of a Dracula film, and instead of being boring and slow as shit, it was like, okay, there's a vampire, we gotta kill him. I don't know if you trust me to kill him, but look, we'll find his coffin, here's a mirror, look at that, you can't see his reflection. 10 out of 10, because they don't show Bela Lugosi for the whole entire first third of the movie. Wonderful. What a great gag. They kill him off. 25 years pass. It starts in World War One. Now it's World War Two. Bam! Bombs explode. The whole where they reburied him. It's open. The guy has taken his stake out of his chest. Bam! Dracula's back. Guess who it is? Fucking Bela Lugosi. The fact that they make it seem like it should be a dramatic reveal that it was him, and then just the first time you see him, the guy who was a wolfman, by the way, who he hypnotized into being a wolfman, is just walking through the woods one night and just happens to stumble upon him. And he's just there. It's not like a dramatic, him there, silhouette in the background or an over-the-shoulder. It just cuts to his face with, no triumph or anything. And I'm like, man, this seems kind of weird. Why did they... I mean, I don't know. Is it meant to be for this narrative purpose of, we don't know it's Bela Lugosi, even though we fucking do. We saw it in the opening titles. It's on the poster. But, also, is it because... So you can't make the argument that the main character should know the fact that it looks like Bela Lugosi as the vampire because she stabbed him in the goddamn chest? Well, actually, her father did, who has now died because he was old. And you'd think that she would recognize his face, but I'm like, well, I guess if narratively we haven't seen his face, then technically she might have that exact kind of thing of maybe you won't recognize the one vampire you've killed in your life. It's a stupid plot hole, but it's there. Nevertheless, then the rest of the movie happens. And it has a little dwindle in the middle where it's like people are getting affected by the vampire. It's a bit like, okay, what are we going for? But then the rest of the movie happens and it's like, holy shit, this is crazy. It's set during the Blitz, so it's got some great like set designs where just shit is exploding. It's wonderful. I highly recommend it. It's beautifully shot. There is so much fog in this movie. Every time they go outside, there's fog. Every time they open the window, fog comes in. I love it. There is so much fog in this movie. And it doesn't look cheap. It looks so stylized and beautiful. Scream Factory release is a must. A wonderful release. On the 7th, I double featured Hairspray, the original from 1988, because it was on the Criterion Channel, because my brother was watching the remake with his partner, and I was just like, oh, I'll let them watch that. I'm going to go watch the original, because I've already seen the remake. And the original was fun. I gave it 3.5 stars. It's not as strong as the remake. I think the remake's better because it has stronger characters and an idea of what it wants to do. Whereas this one kind of feels like they go in a lot of different directions and then it becomes about, oh, racial prejudice and injustice. Let's kind of fix that in this kind of weirdly satirical, like jukebox musical. And again, the newer one with Zac Efron, they actually sing and dance, not just dance to music that already exists. They at least sing in that one, whereas the original they don't. They just dance to music that already exists, I guess, for licensing and to make it cheaper to film. And it's still really fun. Got a great cast. Got some really fun gags. Divine is fantastic in it. There's some great characters in it. It's a really interesting film, so definitely still worth watching. And again, it's technically not a musical because it's a jukebox musical. They're not singing to the songs, they're just dancing because it's the 60s. And it's really funny because they're just doing all these stupid dances because teenagers are dumb. Anyway, I think that's the joke of the movie, but at the same time, they also like solve a whole racial crisis in the town. So I guess Baltimore maybe needs to forgive people more often. But I went into here after that, and my brother and his girlfriend were like, hey, let's watch a Christmas movie. Because they wanted to watch a musical, so they watched Hairspray. Then they wanted to watch a Christmas... Actually, they didn't. They didn't even think about Christmas. They just wanted to watch something else. Now I'll put on The Nice Guys. Love The Nice Guys. This is the first time I've given it 5 stars. Every other time, 4 stars. Now, 5 stars. It just finally clicked fully for how much I love this movie. And this is like the 4th time I've watched it. I hadn't watched it in like 3 years, since like 2021. I'm like, man, I should have watched this sooner. And I hadn't thought about it. I'm just like, it's so good. I'm just gonna watch it. So we watched it. And yeah, of course, the final scene is a Christmas scene. I'm like, oh, this will be my first Christmas movie of the year, I guess. Which is funny, because we're already 7 days into the goddamn month, and I haven't watched a single Christmas movie. On the 8th, I did a triple feature of Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Foul. We watched it for the British Film Festival, I think it was. I wrote, what did I tag it as? BFF24, so I think it was British Film Festival. Gave it 4 stars. My partner and I went to the Astor to watch it. She'd only seen Curse of the Were Rabbit, so I was able to link her on Daily Motion, LeMayo, the Wrong Trousers, because I'm like, that's the only one you need to watch in context for this, but she wants to watch the rest of them now, and I've got the Blu-ray, of course, because I watched them all early this year, because I've had the Blu-ray since, like, 2017. Hooray for ABC when they used to do physical releases. LeMayo. Anyway, I don't know why I keep saying that. It's not the year of LeMayo, I'm just tired. I gave it 4 stars. Really interesting. I like seeing all the background gags because I'm always looking out for background gags in stop motion films. Obviously, references to previous, and other Aardman stuff. Always appreciated. The fact that the whole final act of this movie is just the same final act from Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1 is hilarious. It's almost identical, except replace one train for 2 boats, but still on bridges. It's hilarious. I loved it. I'm like, this is fucking crazy that they just did the exact same ending as Mission Impossible. But I'm here for it because why not? And then we went to the Cinema Nova and watched Ghost Cat Ansu, another 2024 release, which I gave 3 stars. For a 96-minute long film, it was really long. The first half was like, alright, so we're getting this kind of Totoro vibe, very chill summer day vibe. There's also a giant human-sized cat. It's fine. It's normal. They're just chilling out. And then there's this god of poverty, and the cat is like, hey, this god of poverty, you can't follow this girl I'm hanging out with because that's rude. You're going to make her poor. And the girl realizes, hey, if there's a god of poverty, bring me to my mother. Did I mention my mother was dead? Yes, I had, but at the same time, I hadn't mentioned it to you, the audience who are watching this video. So then the second half is just like goes from Totoro to Spirited Away with yokai monsters, and that sounds fun, but it feels really off because where I expected them to be like, oh yeah, this guy who's a god of poverty, and they're looking for her dad who's poor in the city. Go find her fucking dad, Dodoy, he's obviously going to be beaten up by criminals and stuff because he owes them money. She could help. The giant fucking cat could help. No, they go to the underworld to find her dead mother. It's not great. It's an interesting concept, but it feels tonally so goddamn different, and it didn't work for me. Yeah. Anyway, I give it 3 stars. It is interesting. The animation style is the best element about the film. The rest of it is just kind of, it's okay. But then I got home after borrowing a DVD from my friends, which was Scrooged. I watched Scrooged. Actually, I borrowed it the day before on the Saturday, but no one was using the theatre room. I watched Scrooged because I gave it 3.5 stars. Pretty fun. Interesting version of the Christmas Carol film, which I mostly have only liked the Muppet version because I'm a normal human being. But Scrooge was fun. It was entertaining. Bill Murray being funny and an asshole didn't surprise me, so it was interesting how this one was like, oh, you know how like over the course of the film, the narrative, like, he becomes a better person as it goes. This one, he's just an asshole the whole time until he sees his own death and he's like, oh, fuck that. I'm not going to be rude anymore. I'm going to die in like 5 years. We're not doing that. It might even be less than 5 years. He just sees how much shit everyone goes through, and it's only until he sees his own funeral when no one's there except for his brother and like his assistant, who's not even his assistant, and it's just like he's like, I just don't want to be burned alive, even though he was not alive, he's dead obviously, but it's like he didn't want to experience that. So yeah, it's weird. He breaks the fourth wall at one stage. It's very strange. It's amusing, interesting direction, production design. Carol Kane, wonderful. She kicks Bill Murray in the nuts, hits him with a toaster. That would be 5 stars automatically, but I don't know. It just wasn't. On the 9th, I did a double feature of Tangerine, the second side Blu-ray, which was really interesting. I gave it 4 stars. Hadn't seen it before. Had seen Red Rocket and Florida Project, all of which are Sean Baker films. I really liked it. Its style was really interesting. The characters were really fun. It's a interestingly heavy-hitting film whilst also being, kind of with this lighthearted comedic nature to itself, whilst also being like, this is also very realistic in a way. So yeah, I really like Sean Baker's filmography so far. So of course, no connection whatsoever. Went and saw Nora, the special Q&A screening with the director, virtual Q&A at least. And yeah, saw it at the Astor, gave it 4.5 stars. Really liked it as well. I didn't love it. Like, it's not my favorite film of 2024. It's so far in my top 10. It is, but yeah, Mikey Madison is amazing. It's got an amazing cast. It's beautifully shot. It's a gorgeous film. It is really, really, really fucking fun. It's immensely hilarious, but it also has a patch in the middle where they're just kind of not doing anything until they start doing things again, and then the plot starts to speed up again. So it kind of grinds a bit too much to a halt after this whole crazy, very funny but very crazy sequence happens, and then it starts going again, as if like they didn't want to tire you out, so instead they just purposely made you tired and then picked it up again. So yeah, again, not perfect for me, but very much enjoyed it. Was very happy to see it. Cannot wait to watch it again because, of course, I like Sean Baker's filmography. Hopefully, Second Sight do a fun release, but I don't know. That might have just been Tangerine that they got to do because, of course, Florida Project and Red Rocket are just standard Blu-ray releases. So, see how it goes. What else did we watch? If you can hear that, Snoopy is cleaning himself. It's just that kind of night. He wanted to go to bed and sleep underneath my bed, but Indigo was there. Anyway, oh my god, I get messages now when I want to film. People leave me alone, for the love of God. Snoopy! Shush, buddy, I'm trying to film. Anyway, now we're at the second half of the month. It is Christmas Eve that I'm filming. My grandmother is next door, so I'm going to try to keep my voice a little bit lower, just in case. But I figured, look, now is a better time than any to film, so let's get it over and done with. On the 10th, I watched My Darling Clementine, the Criterion 4K scan, masterpiece, 5 stars. It is a phenomenal film. It's so beautifully shot and genuinely captivating, and for a Western, that means a lot. It's just incredible. Wholeheartedly worth seeking out. It is a stunning film. The Criterion especially, just a beautiful release. Then we have The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, the 4K from Imprint. I did my whole unboxing review of it. I gave it 4 stars. Another 4K that looks stupendous. Beautiful set, wonderful film. Really enjoy it. It's just good Australiana. It's great. It feels a little bit dated with some very, very particular references, but outside of that, flawless. Almost flawless. Again, 4 stars. I'm using such big descriptive words that don't actually match what my statements are. Anyway, I followed that up with Between a Frock and a Hard Place from 2015, which is the documentary kind of making of. It's only an hour long, which kind of sucks, but it's a ABC produced thing, so clearly hey, it's been, how many years had it been? It's probably, by that stage it had been 20 years, so they'd been like, it's been 20 years, let's do an hour long, like, documentary, kind of like talking about the making of the film. It should have been a 2-hour long documentary. It could have been so much more than it already was. It's weirdly edited as well. Like, it has really interesting parts, but then it cuts to other bits. It just feels tonally messy, but it's still interesting for what it's worth, and a good bonus feature on the 4K set from Imprint. On the 12th, I watched The Great Escape from Arrow. The new 4K restoration looked amazing. I've seen the film before, but when I was a very young kid, so I don't remember it. But it was just really fun to watch. It was just captivating. The mono sound was great. It's a blast. I gave it 4.5 stars. I mean, it's a incidental Christmas film. One of those incidental Christmas films I've been watching this month, where I hadn't intended to watch Christmas films to such a large degree. I say incidental because they have a scene that's basically like they're singing Christmas music because hey, it's Christmas time. I mean, they celebrate the 4th of July in the movie. Does it matter if it's technically a Christmas film or not? No, it doesn't. But it relates to the plot. Anyway, on the 13th, naturally, I watched Friday the 13th Part 2, because this is the second Friday the 13th we've had this year. At least from my memory, because I'm pretty sure it was the second Friday the 13th we've had this year. One in, like, October, or was it September? I think it was one in September and one in December. So yeah, Part 2. It's really fun. I still gave it 3.5 stars. It's a joy to watch. It's one of my favorites of the series. Not one of the best, but of the basic formulaic, teenagers go to a camp thing because they're camp counselors before the kids arrive, and then a guy called Voorhees, or a person I should say called Voorhees, comes by and kills a bunch of them. It's the better of those behind Part 4, the final chapter. Because then after that, the rest of them are basically like supernatural thrillers. So, like when Jason comes back to life and all that stuff. So, yeah. But we followed that up for some reason. I watched that by myself. My brother and his girlfriend came home and they're like, hey, we want to watch a film. And they put on James and the Giant Peach, the one that I think it was Henry Selick did. The guy who actually directed Nightmare Before Christmas. It's a weird film. I gave it 3 stars on just the technical front and the great cast. Susan Sarandon as Sexy Spider, good choice. Weirdness of having live action and then becoming stop motion and then mixing the two and just having such a bizarre story. I've never read the book, or at least if I have, I was very, very young, so I don't remember it. That's why I think I've read it, but I can't remember. So I can't say how good of an adaptation it is, but I will say it is a very, very weird film and has a very strange New York ending. Anyway. On the 14th, we went to the Cinemaniacs. Oh, that was beautiful. The Christmas special for the Cinemaniacs. Got to introduce Helene to Possession. What a Christmassy movie. Very romantic and nice and beautiful. I I gave it 5 stars, of course. It's the 4K restoration. It was presented, because I knew that because it was presented by Umbrella, and it just looked so goddamn nice on the big screen. It was both insanely tense and insanely funny. It was interesting to watch it with a crowd because the parts that I thought were really good as a drama, really captivating. One girl about 3 rows in front of me was cracking herself the whole time. It's like all the domestic abuse stuff, she was pissing herself. But then when it got to all the weird shit with the squid monster, she was weirdly silent. So I think it was just the performances. There's such a weird disconnect because of how strange the performances are. But I really like it. It's got such a weird but beautiful energy to it. I know a friend of mine who was actually in the row right behind me hated it the whole time. She was just like, what the fuck is happening? Why is he acting like that? Why is this movie still going? This movie will never end. And I know that that would sound annoying to a regular person, and it probably would have been, but because A, I've seen this before, and B, she was my friend, I was like, this is really funny. The fact that she's just hates this experience. And she was afterwards like, why do you love this film? I'm like, I don't know, I just do. I completely understand, and I'm completely okay with the fact that you don't like this film because it's just that kind of film. I'm not going to dislike a person for not liking a film, unless it's something I really, really, really love that I don't understand why people wouldn't like. I don't know. Challenges, maybe? Anyway, so then we got on the 15th, another 4K, North by Northwest, one of the best 4Ks I have ever seen. This was just a standard Australian release, but I got it 30% off, whatever, because I felt like, fuck it, I'll get it, $19. Beautiful. The Dolby Atmos track encompasses the room so well. The colours, the visuals, the texture. My dad actually watched it a couple of days later, and he watched the first half in here. I think he watched a third in here, went out to the kitchen, the lounge room where his TV is, which is a 75-inch, mine's 65, and he watched it there. And you could tell immediately that there was a dip in quality because my TV is OLED and Dolby Vision. And then he went back into here to finish watching it the next day, because, sometimes you don't always finish a film in one day, so he watched it in multiple sittings. So yeah, that was very interesting. But he definitely liked it more on my screen, which is good because I spent a lot of money on my screen for it to be the quality that it is, and it is a phenomenal 4K. On the 16th, I watched Guest House Paradiso, the Indicator 4K restoration. Again, a nice 4K, a really interesting film. Because I grew up with the young ones, I understood its style of comedy because it is very abusive in terms of physical comedy, but the two people basically beating up on each other for a whole movie. But it's okay, they're both guys. It's not domestic, but it's very goofy, and then it becomes very vomity by the end, and it's hilarious. I thought the last 15 minutes were fucking hysterical, but the rest of it was still very funny leading up to that. You kind of got to warm into it, but it's so strange. If you understand the style it's going for, if you understand the people who made it and what they've done prior, it's easier to connect to it. But on a completely no prior history to this, it is very strange. Then on the 17th, I watched and reviewed Eyes Without a Face, the 4K from Umbrella. Again, beautiful 4K. I gave it 4 stars. It's a great film. No issues with it realistically. I mean, my only issue with the 4K was the subtitles were a bit wrong occasionally. They'd changed the letter, an exclamation mark for the number 1. I think that was it. Yeah, no, the letter I for the number 1. For some reason, they kept changing. It happened 2 or 3 times. It wasn't annoying, but it was noticeable. Then on the 19th, I watched The Haunted Castle from 1896, which is maybe one of my earliest films I've ever logged on Letterboxd. This is from George Lumet? Was that his name? Holy shit. Yeah, George Millet, sorry. This was actually, it's technically called... It's got 3 different names. It's technically called The House of the Devil. That's what it's a part of the release of from Umbrella, The House of the Devil, Ty West film, that release. Really interesting, 3-minute long, very early, technically the first ever horror film, first ever vampire film, first ever The Devil on screen film. It's strangely funny. It's a lot of those jump cuts that Millet was known for, and because of that, there's a parts where a chair is jumping around the room and the main character is trying to get onto the chair, and then just as he's about to get to the chair, a skeleton pops up, and it's sitting on that chair. And I'm like, that's fucking funny. I was like thinking, it'd be really funny if a skeleton popped up, and bam, a skeleton popped up. It was good timing. So, amusing. Little short film. I also, of course, followed that up with The House of the Devil from Ty West from 2009. The Blu-ray release was good, but again, if you've seen my Blu-ray review, you know that I was not big on the film. I gave it 2.5 stars. It is very boring. Not a lot happens in the middle. I can understand for some audiences it would be insanely intense. Like, oh my god, this is like this is the opposite of what Shinema was for me. Shinema, I really liked its style and just how visceral it was, whereas this one was just, man, is something going to happen? And then it does, and it's too late, and I don't really give a shit. Stylistically, it's still nice in terms of visuals and, you know, a lot of character motivations and stuff like that. And even, again, the last 10-15 minutes are pretty interesting and fun. But it's a long time before you get to those last 10 to 15 minutes. Or at least it feels like a long time, because it feels like a long time. On the 20th, I rewatched The Ninth Gate, part of the imprint set, because I wanted to watch the video essay so I could talk about it in my... as a part of the imprint podcast. I was on the Best of 2024 episode, which should be out by now, in which I referred to that video essay by Sally Christie called The Devil is a Woman. Really good video essay. The film itself I gave 3 stars, which I feel a bit bad about because a lot of the people on the podcast were really love that film, openly classing it as a masterpiece. And I'm like, sure, alright, you do you. I gave it 3 stars. I'm like, it's fine. It doesn't really click with me a lot of the time, but I would like to, after listening to Suzanne and John and everyone talking about it, I really kind of want to dive more into the special features outside of Sally's essay. Sally's essay is great, but there's some special features on it that talk about certain things in the film, like analyzing the book that they use and all these different elements that I'm like, because of it's a 2-disc set, I felt like if I looked at the special features, I could reanalyze the film and kind of find new appreciation for it. I just feel like it's a little bit long to some degree, maybe 10 to 15 minutes long, because realistically it's a film that a guy's looking for 3 different books, he's got one, and he has to, find the other 2 and whatever. I mean, there's 3 people he has to talk to, and of course they all rinse repeat, get killed, he gets part of the book, gets killed, gets part of the book. It's just repetitive. The first act is really interesting, the last act is really interesting, but the middle bit is just very repetitive, and I don't love it for that reason. Johnny Depp's an interesting character in the film, that's for sure, and it has an interesting visual style. Yeah, it has its moments. It never captivated me the first time I watched it, but again, even Philip Jeffries, friend of the channel, who he loves it. He gave it 5 stars. So I'm like, I don't know. It's just doesn't click for me like it does for everyone else. But I still think it's okay. I think I might rewatch it after watching the video essays and all the stuff on the commentaries and whatever the fuck bonus features. I might give it 3.5 stars, maybe 4 if I really start to love it. But I don't know. Everything takes time. People hated it when it first came out, and people love it now. So it's give me 20 years. Maybe I'll be like, man, that Ninth Gate, pretty good. We'll see. Maybe I got to be in a better mood for I've got to watch Bitter Moon and all those other Polanski films from the 90s that are in that same box set, and I'll be like, yeah, I get it now. I don't know, maybe. Anyway, now it's Christmas time. On the 21st, I rewatched Black Christmas. 4K, Scream Factory, stunning. Had watched it exactly a year prior at the Astor with Phil and Katie and Helene. Helene had never seen it before. It was the old DVD print. It looked like shit, but it was kind of nice. It was a cold night in Melbourne, which very rarely happens in summer. It's summer, but this past week and a bit, it's been either 2 30-degree days and the rest have been 20. And I'm currently on a 20-degree day. Christmas and Boxing Day are going to be 30 and 33, or 30 and 36, I think it is. So that's not going to be great. But then it's 20 again right after. So of course the night I watched this was a cold night. It was the first cold night the first cold day we had for a 4-day stretch. And so I watched this film again, and yeah, still beautiful. I was going to watch the commentary track, but I was like, nah, I just want to watch it with its original mono, just the 4K, see how the transfer looks. And the transfer still looks fantastic. A wonderful release from Scream Factory. But just a beautiful film and really terrifying. Billy is horrifying in the film. I don't get scared by slasher films, but this is one of the only slasher films I've actually found to be genuinely unnerving and scary. Because the villain is just that level of fucked up. the stuff he does, how he doesn't really get captured. Helene was like, oh, so in the sequel, does he get captured? I'm like, there isn't a sequel. There's just remakes, which is crazy. So, beautiful performances from Olivia Hussey and a couple others of the cast. I mean, John Saxon's great, Margot Kidder, fantastic. So, yeah, definitely worth checking out if you haven't, obviously. On the 22nd, I double featured Fangs from 1974. Got the remastered, uncut Blu-ray. Don't even know why. I thought it was an eco-horror. Two people I follow on Letterboxd who are the only people I know who have watched it gave it 4.5 stars. I'm like, alright, let's take a look. It sounded like it was about a guy who used snakes to go out and hunt and kill people, like his enemies. It isn't. The first half of the film sets up, and it's 90 minutes, so like the first half sets up, hey, he's in this town, he's a snake wrangler. People, the kids bring him mice and shit, and these snakes eat him, and he's kind of got a weird sexual affair with the school teacher, but then the people at the convenience store don't like him and are trying to run him out of town, so same with the preacher, and his best mate just got married and is just like, hey, we can't have our big band nights anymore because I've got a wife. And he's just like, cool, I'm just going to kill everyone then. So I'm just going to lure them all to my place and kill them off one by one. Put them in a snake pit, see who wins. It's kind of crazy. The second half really is mental, just what they do. And very funny, because it just keeps going. That's one of those rinse and repeat where it's just like, I'm happy to keep watching this, because this is 45 minutes of a guy luring someone in, they fight a snake, they die, and then he pushes their truck off a cliff. Fucking amazing. Still gave it 3.5 stars. It's entertaining, Sure, why not? In a better mood with a crowd. If I was there with mates, I feel like if you had people to laugh with you at just how fucking absurd this movie is, you'd really click. So definitely a good get drunk and watch with mates kind of movie or something like that, or even get high and watch with mates, but depends on what kind of high we're talking about. On the same night, of course, I watched Christmas Evil, the 88 film's 4K uncut director's cut version. I love this film. I gave it 4.5 stars. I think I watched it last year on Tubi, and I was like, man, this is crazy how good this movie is. Like, I was expecting just generic slasher slosh. But for a 1980 film, it is one of the better slasher films. It's like Silent Night, Deadly Night, just encompasses this like traumatic experience of this kid who then grows up to embody Santa and then fuck around with people, and it's mental. It has great variations to it. It's got some beautiful just visuals. The main character is really interesting. What he does is like insanely creepy, but also kind of insanely nice. But then you realize, oh, that's what Santa Claus does. He's insanely creepy, but also insanely nice sometimes. Yeah, I don't know. It's a really good film. If you want to watch a fun Christmas slasher next year, or this year, I guess, because it's 2025 for you now, isn't it? If you want to watch a good Christmas slasher, Christmas Evil and Black Christmas and Silent Night, Deadly Night, 3 of the best. On the 24th, which is the day I'm filming right now, I actually did a triple feature because it's now my holiday for the next 2 days until I go back to work. Anyway, I wanted to honor Lee by watching one of his favorite Christmas films, and so I looked up on his Facebook, and he actually had a interview they did back in 2021 that I actually linked to in my Letterboxd review as well, where he lists 5 films and gives a brief description as to why he thinks that they're a great Christmas horror film. And this one, The Curse of the Werewolf from Hammer, was the first one there, and I was like, I thought I had that, and I looked up, I did the stupid thing, I went to buy a copy, and then I was like, oh, I can't get any of these today, there's no point, I want to get the Scream Factory, it's a 4K release of a bunch of special features, I'll get that eventually. And then I just looked on the bluray.com app and realized, no, I have it. I've had it for a year now. I forgot that I bought it. I bought it on eBay with Constantine so I could get them cheap. It was like one of those buy 2, get 20% off kind of thing, so I got it for like $11. Okay, sure, whatever. It's the old Shock Entertainment Blu-ray, but it looks like a really nice scan anyway. Like, it doesn't look like a DVD upscale, so I'm wondering if that was already a 2K or 4K scan. But probably not as good as the Scream Factory one is, but it still looks great, just doesn't have any special features, and only 1 audio track. But I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. It's, for Hammer and being their only werewolf feature, it is really original. It's again like, Fangs, where it's a two-half film. The first half is a story about two different characters, about a beggar. It's set in like, you know, ye olden times of aristocrats and shit. Anyway, he's a beggar who gets imprisoned, and then the woman who's the daughter of the guy, the prison guard, who's feeding him, after a couple of years, because it takes place over basically the course of like 50 years, he may or may not, well, she gets imprisoned, he does something, may or may not die, and then she has a baby, and then the baby's born on Christmas Day, but because it was out of wedlock, it gets cursed with the curse of the werewolf. And then the second half of the film is Oliver Reed as the guy who's a fucking werewolf, and he turns into a werewolf a very minimal amount of times, but the utilization of it is very effective. The gore effects are great. The character moments are really interesting. The last 10, 15 minutes are really great with the werewolf stuff. The rest of it is like, if you want werewolves for the whole film, you're not going to get werewolves for the whole film. There's like 10 minutes of werewolf stuff tops, which isn't fantastic, but the utilization of it is pretty good. And again, they keep it very subtle in the first part of it that they show it, and then they make it more obvious as it goes along, so they can really sell the effect of the werewolf, especially the makeup design. It looks so unique. So yeah, given Lee loved werewolf films, I can see why he liked this film so much. And to be fair, it's very interesting and quite fun. It's so just different to any werewolf films, and I'm always looking for something that's different because so many of them are the same. And like with the vampire films, I compared it to Return of the Vampire, the Bela Lugosi film, in my review, because I felt like they were both very similar. You could probably watch them back to back and get a similar vibe, especially because they're both set over the course of 20 to 30 years. They're both a complete redux on the mythos in a way, but also reutilizing what already exists. It's very interesting. Then I watched The Muppet Christmas Carol. I gave it 4.5 stars. I watched it on Disney Plus, which I realized my mother doesn't have the 4K subscription for Disney Plus, which is fine. It still is the 4K transfer, but just a HD version. It's fun. It needs a 4K UHD. I don't know why it doesn't. It would sell so well if it had a UHD release. I could get a Blu-ray release of it, but I just can't be bothered. So anyway, great film. Great to watch on Christmas Eve because it's set before Christmas. Christmas is the end of the movie. The last 10 minutes is Christmas, so it makes sense to watch it on Christmas Eve. Much like, well, Black Christmas is set on Christmas, and actually they're never really specific, are they? I think Black Christmas, I think, is a Christmas Eve film. It does take place on Christmas, like, because it has an overnight section, but they don't really, I don't know, it's kind of just in December. That they're not really overly specific. I'm pretty sure it's on Christmas Eve and then Christmas Day. Whereas Christmas Evil is Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, but mostly Christmas Day. But then, of course, last but not least, you've got Silent Night, Deadly Night. Part 2, hey, I didn't watch Part 1 again. I watched Part 2. I gave it 2 stars. It's not great. This is a rewatch, actually. I watched it 2 years ago when I introduced it to... Actually, I watched it for the first time with my partner, who hadn't seen Part 1, but I really wanted to watch Part 2 because I watched Part 1 the week earlier. And so I'm like, oh, well, I heard Part 2 is mostly a recap and then a continuation. And it is. The first 40 minutes is a recap. And it's not a bad recap. It doesn't give you the emotional energy that the first one has because you watched all that take place over the course of an hour and a half and it works a lot better. Masterpiece of a film. And then this one is just like, I don't really give a shit for Ricky. Like, his whole story is him talking about his brother, and he makes it seem like it's his story, but it isn't. And then when it is his story, we go through it very quickly, and then suddenly you get the montage of him murdering people, and then he breaks out of prison and kills the nun, and that's the end of the movie. So the last 15 minutes are great. From Garbage Day scene onwards, like him shocking the guy to death in his car, shooting the cop in the head. Garbage Day? Great, wonderful. The rest of it sucks. His performance is fucking unhinged. So at least it has that. What else did we watch? You know, I swear one of these clips is going to be set in 2025, but it ain't this one. this is the last clip, second last clip I'm filming before the year actually wraps up, because I figure I'll just quickly film before doesn't matter. Because I'm spending New Year's at my partner's, so I'll be watching stuff with her. How cutesy. Anyway, on Christmas, I watched the Gremlins. I watched Gremlins on Christmas. 5 stars, 4K, looks so fucking good. I don't know if I'd even noticed how good it looked. I think it's the first time I've watched it on the OLED TV, and it's just stunning. I mean, I love it as a film. It is my favorite Christmas film. There's so much beauty and craft to it. Just a pure nightmare and gorgeous, and I love it. I love how it feels like just a regular Christmas movie. Look, there's some fun characters, there's some assholes, and half the characters vanish by the time the Gremlins show up, because it's like, it just doesn't matter about them anymore. It's the whole essence of a Gremlin is that it just will just rip out of what is a well-crafted thing and just destroy it no matter what. So I'm like, Judge Reynolds' character just fucking vanishes from the movie, never to be mentioned of again, and it doesn't matter. Reinhold? I can't remember how to pronounce his surname. Anyway, on the 26th I did a triple feature. I actually started with Doctor Who Joy to the World because I watched it with my mother, because, it came out, whatever. I gave it 3.5 stars. I guess it's fine. Maybe it shouldn't be 3.5 stars. I also logged it on Serialized. I found it enjoyable. I thought the first 10 or so minutes were interesting to get into. I really liked the Doctor's relationship with the girl at the hotel that he was staying at for a year. I didn't care as much for Joy by the end of it, and I thought that the ending was kind of hilarious because Jesus and whatever, but it was alright, I guess. Sure, whatever, passable. Doctor Who. Moving on. But then I went out to the cinemas and watched a double feature. This is a crazy double feature that theories will go crazy for. Sonic 3. Yeah. Watched it with my mate Guy. This is so far the best one, I think, of the 3, because I don't care much for the first 2. I gave them both 2.5 stars. This one I gave 3 stars. It's fun. It's stupid as hell. But I find it enjoyable, which is ironic because I don't like the Sonic games, yet I like the movies. Like, I don't think they're great, but I'm like, they're fine. They're enjoyable. They're still kids' films. I watched it with my mate Guy, who the previous 2 I'd seen with my mate Pierre. So he wanted to watch it because he's a big fan of Sonic Adventure 2, and he thought it would have a similar plot because Shadow and whatever. And it has similar stuff, but not a lot of the same stuff. And he also was not prepared for how much of a kids' movie it is, so he didn't like it. Whereas I was like, I thought it was fun. It's exactly what I was expecting. It's a little bit better than what I've seen previously. It mixes the A and B plot better than the second film did. So, and the first film I still think is just rather forgettable, so it is what it is. But then we watched Better Man, which I thought was called A Better Man, which actually, initially I thought it was called Monkey Man. I'm not a big Robbie Williams fan. His music's fine, like, I've never disliked it, but I've never had the passion or interest for his boy band stuff or just his music in general, which is just like, sure, alright, whatever, mister, I played at the Grand Final Australia a couple years ago or whatever, I don't care. But this was really fun. I gave it 4 stars. It's really unique because he's a monkey, but I like how it has not just his narration to emphasize a kind of more, hey, I understand how wanky this is because it's pretentious as shit. It's like Rocket Man, where that's not pretentious, but it's a musical, so it's naturally kind of pretentious, but I love it. And this has the same vibe because it's a musical, and also it's the regular biopic stuff where he grows up as a kid, wants to be famous, wants to be a pop star, goes through trials and tribulations, becomes a drug addict, beats through the drug addict stuff, and then moves on. It's not as cliche that, like, he's mid-concert or about to do a big show and then just leaves to do rehab like they did in Rocket Man. Instead, it's like, no, he does the concert, but he keeps imagining himself in the concert, in the crowd, but it's a monkey because he's a monkey, which I think was a great visual, because then he starts fighting them. He jumps off the stage and starts fighting them with a broadsword, and it's a crazy sequence. It's the only time in the movie it does that, but it's really fucking out of whack, and it's really fun. Definitely worth watching if you're a Robert Williams fan, and just if you want something a bit different, a bit flavourful for your biopics. Not a bad option. No Nicole Kidman, so, I mean, but Decapitations, really hard to say which one's better. On the 27th, I did another triple feature. I came home from a day of work, I bought some movies, and found out that the Neverending Story was on Stan. Yeah, I am still not cashing out for that it's currently $175 while I'm filming because it's 25% off. I'm not fucking buying that set. I know imprint set looks amazing, but I'm not buying it. It's big, it's obnoxious, I don't care. I just want the standard version they probably won't ever release. Even though they did their own transfer. I cannot believe that. But still, I watched it on Stan, which looked fucking awful because compression to hell, but it was free because it's Mum's account. Hooray! I gave it 3.5 stars. I'd never seen it before. It's fine. It's a fun, fantasy adventure film for kids. It's a decent family movie. I like how meta it gets by the end of it, like the fact that the kids reading the book and they're referencing in the book, in the Neverending Story show, in the universe of that, Fantasia. I love that they call it Fantasia. Hilarious. They're referencing the kid reading the book, and then they reference us watching the kid reading the book, and I'm like, oh, I like this. This is interesting. This is a really nice interesting thing. And then of course it ends with his journey hasn't finished yet, but he'll come back. And I'm like, oh, that's great, because his dad must be shitting himself because his dead wife and now his kid's just gone missing and just hasn't shown up to school even though he's been in the attic the whole time. We never get resolution to that, because then I watched Neverending Story 2. I bought the DVD for $2 at a Nop shop, which actually looked slightly better than I did on Stan, at least the first film on Stan, which is really fucking funny. I didn't think the second film was as good. I gave it 2.5 stars, but they were just like, yeah, this is the second half of the first book, but also it's also like a year later, and also it's a different cast except for the bookkeeper dude, and yeah, this time the dad's involved in the story, so his kid going missing is a part of the plot, which works. Nice, I guess, but the rest of the story is just kind of too kid-focused. It's too very obvious. The guy losing the part of his memories doesn't become too relevant to the plot when it really should be. It's very dumb. It's fine, like, it still has a nice visual aesthetic, but a lot of the effects don't look as great as they did in the first film, even though the first film still has some pretty shoddy blue screen effects, holy shit. But the practical effects in the first film, marvelous. So, I can imagine on 4K there would be at least a bit more quality to that, because, of course, you would have just how beautiful all those practical effects look. But I just don't care to spend that much money on one film. Anyway, and then because I just felt like it on Disney Plus, I watched Return to Oz. I gave it 4 stars. I've never seen this before, and watching it, having been growing up as a fan of the original Wizards of Oz movie, I'm like, this is a weird sequel, but I don't think it is, because they reference the Scarecrow being a king, and I'm like, that's not a thing in the movie, unless I forgot, but that's not a thing in the movie. I didn't like its visual style at first. It's too realistic versus the, big Technicolor 30s look of the original. So there was a lot of things I had to get used to, but as it went along, I started liking it. I liked Dorothy as a kid, it makes more sense. I liked the world. I actually really liked the second act. Like, the first act was a bit the second act was interesting, but the third act I really liked. I loved the villain, the fact that he's I don't even know how to describe it. He's a claymation. He's a claymation monster made of stone who slowly becomes more human as more of Dorothy's friends become ornaments. And it's really interesting. I like how they did that. The other villain being the woman, who's great. 30 different heads. Great idea. Beautifully nightmarish for any kid. Any of those characters who are made of whatever the fuck they're made of, like the lion, like the Scarecrow, like the Tin Man. Terrifying. I didn't mind the Scarecrow as much. His face is still fucking weird, but at least when he's in the film, he has personality because he talks and does stuff. But then you look at the Tin Man and the Lion, and they just look like nightmares because they don't talk. They don't do anything, and it's just like, what the fuck are those things? So yeah, I do like the new companions, though. I think they work better in the story. There's a lot of elements like that just work nicer. It's interesting. It's a really interesting film. It's definitely a sequel to the book. It's an adaptation of the sequel to the book, even though I'm pretty sure Return to Oz is like the 3rd or 4th book in the series or something. So the fact that people expect it to be a sequel to the original film is really dumb, because it doesn't have that look or that appeal or anything. Like, it's so different, but still, it is what it is. On the 28th, I watched Tetsuo the Iron Man because it was like 60 something minutes, 67 minutes, and I figured, well, I haven't seen it yet, let's watch it. I've been working on the shelf the whole day, I fixed it up again, and it was a fucking nightmare. Like, it's great. I gave it 4 stars. I'm like, this is a fucking weird film. It's been so long since I've watched such surrealist cinema that this was just bizarre to me. I couldn't comprehend what I was watching a lot of the time, but I think that also works for it. I love the stop motion effects in it. They look fantastic. There are so many pieces of metal that will just degrade and then vanish, but like in this weird stop motion-y way that it looks great. It was one of those films that I put headphones on for, which was great because there's a lot of screaming, which was definitely good for headphones, not for out loud, because people would be concerned. Visually, very distinct look. I thought it was filmed in the 60s, but no, it was filmed in 1988, which is 1989, but still probably 1988 that it was filmed in, because it was low budget 16mm black and white 4:3. Interesting choices. I have the 2-pack with the second film. Haven't yet to watch the second film. Was gonna do that, but then I was like, you know what? I kind of want to watch something a bit happier and not as gory. Maybe the effects for gore wasn't as insane as I expected, so I was a little let down by that. But still, it is what it is. I thought it was an interesting concept for a film. Definitely worth checking out if you're a Japanese horror fan, or just a horror fan, and it's like so short that it's worth watching wholeheartedly. Then on the 29th, I did another short one. This was the 45-minute Louis Buñuel. Is it Louis Buñuel? I can never pronounce his actual surname. I think it's Louis Buñuel. Simon of the Desert from 1965, which was on the Criterion Channel because I'm like, I don't have much time left to watch the Criterion Channel before my subscription ends, and I pause it for another 3 months. So I figured I'd watch this because I didn't want to have to buy the big box set, even though I probably should, because this was really good. I gave it 4 stars. It was just a very interesting, clearly part 1 of meant to be 3 different chapters of a film, and it just wasn't that, and I think it still worked really nicely. It's a commentary on religion and faith, and seeing someone in their decree of like a religious, prayer act, because Simon of the Desert is a guy who's on a goddamn pole in the desert who just prays every goddamn minute of the day and doesn't do anything else and just stands in this fucking pole for, it's not a pole, but still, he just stands on this pillar for years on end, and it's just to get in contact with God, and it's really interesting. The devil shows up, and she's a woman despite calling herself a man, which is really interesting as well. The last scene of the film, which I won't say anything about, is a great contrast to exactly what he was trying to do, but in a modern context, which is really funny. It's a good satire of religion. Someone who, like myself, doesn't like religion very much, it's always interesting to see this kind of thing, because I was just like, this is stupid, whatever, this is a dumb idea, why would you stand on a pole and dedicate your life to this? But then that last scene happened, I'm like, this is good, I like this is a good film. I already thought it was a good film, but I really like its message. Very nice. And then tonight I did a double feature of Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Because I felt like it, but also funny that Nolan's doing a remake of, not this film, he's doing an adaptation of The Odyssey. But this is The Odyssey, which I've never read, so I'm like, alright, sure. I'm just going to experience it as a Coen Brothers film, and that's really my forte in this regard. And it was really funny. The music was fun, the story was great, the characters were great, really enjoyable to watch. Just a good 4-star film all around. I imagine I'll like it a little more on rewatch to understand more of the comedic aspects to it, if you will. Much like, of course, the old Dark House from 1932, the James Whale film. I just figured, fuck it, I might as well watch it. All these have been Blu-ray releases I've had and just haven't watched. This has a stunning 4K restoration. The Eureka Masters Cinema release is stupendous. It is a really interesting film. I didn't know if I was expecting more horror or more comedy from the film. I didn't find it to be particularly funny, but I think it's a class consciousness kind of satirical funny. Whereas the horror isn't gratuitous or in your face, it's more of subtle whilst also being like, it's just creepy and atmospheric, and that's what works for it. So yeah, I like the characters. It's so gay. I love it. It's wonderful. Definitely will be rewatching this in the future. Very interesting film. I should definitely watch it with. I think it comes with a commentary track, so I think that would help to break down what the film's going for. And it's not that long. It's like 72 minutes, so it's like a breeze. So anyway, what else did I watch to end the year? Oh my god. And lucky last, which I'm wearing shoes, hence why you can see the top of that there. Kind of weird, isn't it? Usually it's like a bit lower. It doesn't matter. We ended the year with Phantom Thread, which is technically a New Year's film. Apparently it's one of those that people watch on Letterboxd for New Year's. I just really liked the movie, and hadn't seen it in a year and a half, so I figured, you know what, it's time to revisit this movie. It's really goddamn good. I gotta show my girlfriend. She's gonna love it. And we got about 10 minutes in, and she was like, is this a slow movie? And I'm like, it's a drama. And she's like, does that mean it's a slow movie? I'm like, I mean, I guess. She fell asleep. So she woke up during the last, 30 to 40 minutes, which is good, but, again, not phenomenal. So, yeah, but it didn't really bother me that much, because it's like, yeah, she can watch it whenever. I still logged it saying that I've introduced it to her. She can watch it. I've left the Blu-ray at her place so she can watch it whenever. We're going to watch Wallace and Gromit cartoons, but we didn't get around to it either. So much shit we just didn't do. But nevertheless, fantastic film, 5 stars, all that jazz. It's beautiful. It's really, really funny. It's probably not meant to be, but I think it's a really funny movie. So, and my partner's mother, because I spent New Year's most of the time at her place, at my partner's place, she thought it was a horror film because it's Phantom Thread. And I'm like, no, it's just about a guy who makes fucking clothes. It's sewing the movie. Anyway, the year is done. It's 2025 now. I'm back home. I've already watched my first movie for the year, which was actually a 2024 film. But you'll find that out in a month. And, yeah, I'll be back in a week or two with mail hauls, because I've already gotten Blu-rays in, but I don't want to have any videos come out while I'm on my holiday, so I don't want to have to deal with that. So, yep, see you kids in a week or two, where, again, we'll have a haul of stuff come in, and other things will happen. I've got a bunch of videos that I had filmed last year that should be coming out within the next couple of weeks. So if it suddenly looks like I have A, different glasses, and B, hair, just remember they were all basically filmed in July of last year. I just didn't get around to editing them. I might not even release them all. I might actually remove 1 or 2 from the slate. It just was easy to edit, and I'm like, oh, I don't love this, but it's okay. But, that's just what some of these videos are like. Anyway, I hope you kids had a fun end-of-year movie thingy, or just party, whatever the hell you did. And see you kids next month. Bye. I'm so tired. Bye.